All right, well, hello, Team ET. Welcome to this very special episode. Why special? Well, during the week, I've discovered a little gem. It's a management encyclopedia disguised as a leadership book. And today we're going to be speaking with the author. We're going to be unpacking some of the wisdom that sits between those two covers. And I guess we should introduce our guest before we jump into that. So I'm going to welcome her onto the show. You would have heard it in the intro anyway, but it's none other than the engagement whisperer and creator of the art of relationshipping, two-time international best-selling author, CEO of Light the Spark Consulting, relationshiping coach, and just an all-round great person, Miss Michelle Hoffmann. Michelle, a pleasure to welcome you to the ET Project.
Thank you so much for having me, Wayne. I'm delighted to be here and to share all of the secrets that are inside those two covers that I have shared for decades with people in the workplace and people who have reported to me. And I love that you're calling it the management encyclopedia. Because this book was written as a love letter to all the people who reported to me, who, when I recruited, hired, and trained them at the interview, once I was sure they were the right person for the role that I had in mind, and they would line up with the team that I've developed to achieve the results that I had been challenged to achieve for the organization, I would say to them, I am going to share my body of knowledge with you, and with your body of knowledge and mine that I'm gifting to you, my intention is for you to be better, stronger, faster, smarter than I am, so that at some point you will grow, not only to backfill my position, but to fulfill your professional goals in life. And very few of them believed me at the interview, but they are still reaching back to me and saying, hey, that was amazing. I didn't believe it when you said it, but I'm now the founder and CEO of my own successful organization. I'm in the C-suite, and I started out as, an entry-level job with you. You gave me the skills that I was hoping to get, or I didn't know I needed, to follow the career path that I wished and dreamed for. So they thank me still to this day.
Very nice. We're going to unpack the book in great detail. So
Okay.
hold on to that knowledge for the moment. I think our listeners enjoy hearing from our guests a little bit about who they are, what's their background. Before that, though, what's got you excited in the world today?
Oh my gosh. Even on Monday morning this week, I was talking with someone and she was like, how are you so excited on a Monday morning? I'm like, I love every one of the days. They bring so much wonder. And before, I have a tradition, a routine that I do before I wake up. Once I know I'm awake, but before I open my eyes, I take 3 deep breaths and I calm and I pause. And I think about what the day will hold for me that I get to look forward to. Who in the world may I positively impact in some way? What sensation will I be able to enjoy because I get to wake up and enjoy this day? And that has been a ritual that has really served me, because it reminds me, one, that I get to enjoy the day, and that it gives me a little bit of a preview in my mind's eye of what I get to look forward to, what challenge I'm taking on, how I'm going to approach it, who do I get to interact with. So what's really inspiring me today actually happened last night in my VIP group. And I have a client who came to me, and she was professionally, like most all of my clients, professionally very, very successful. She has it going on. She knows how to get the job done, how to exceed expectations on a consistent basis. She knows that she is one of the most vital team members in her organization. There's nothing they can hand her that she can't tackle and, and tie up with a bow successfully. With that, her personal life has really struggled and floundered. She couldn't figure out what was wrong. What was she missing? If she's so smart, how is it that she can't enjoy this healthy partnership that she's been dreaming of having her whole life? So when we started working together, she's like, wow, I was interviewing people like I would interview a person for a job in my company rather than sharing experiences with them to bond in a partnership. So that's a nice distinction between professional and personal relationships. She said, I had been taught by my culture, by my family, to dumb it down and don't show anyone how brilliant and intelligent I am, but I can't sustain that for any length of time. And over time, I get bored with the people I'm seeing because I enjoy the intellectual stimulation that goes along with a philosophical conversation.
Yep.
And she was told that those aren't the right people for her. Nobody would like you unless you become something that you're not. So she was feeling like she was not young enough, not pretty enough, not, too smart in this case, too successful, too this, too that. And she was missing an opportunity in her life to be in this healthy, intimate partnership, although she'd been very successful in her professional relationships. So last night she was sharing that she and her boyfriend, who adores her like a goddess for exactly who she is, they're up leveling the relationship, and he is everything she couldn't even imagine she could seek in a partnership. And he feels like he's won the jackpot. I mean, wow. So, I get to wake up with stories like that every single day. I feel like this is the greatest job ever.
I love that. And I'm smiling to myself because not long ago, I finished a leadership program, and the first module was about attitude. And one of the suggestions we made was, when you wake up in the morning, that's the time to frame your attitude for the rest of the day. And your methodology, think of 3 great things that are going to happen, or you're working towards, it is a perfect example. So I'm hoping there's some listeners out there that have been in that program with me. You've just heard it firsthand. So thank you for sharing that.
Nice.
Fantastic.
I didn't know you had set. I spiked.
Very good. I mentioned the word relationshiping in the introduction before. What does that word mean? Come on, is there such a word?
I don't know if there was, but there is now, because I see relationships as a verb. So I gave it the extra PING because you're actually actively engaging in the relationship. Of course, there are many different types of relationship, and even if you're being passive and it's happening, you're still, either whether you're acting or and if you're doing or not doing something, you're still engaged in that partnership, in that one-to-one relationship, and therefore it's an action. So you're relationshiping. That's how I came up with it.
Very nice, very nice. You also have quite an interesting backstory. So I wonder if you mind just sharing briefly some of the, I don't know, career highlights or some of the journey you've been on.
Sure, I'm happy to. This is it's going back to relationshiping, and showing the intention that you bring into each partnership makes all the difference, as you were saying, in each of those connections. When I One of the things that I always dreamed of is to be in a healthy partnership, to do the traditional marriage, kids. I didn't really need a white picket fence, which is evidently a popular Americana dream. But I really was seeking that bond that I saw met my parents and grandparents when they looked at each other. It was like the zinger that happened. It wasn't just an everyday routine, even though mundane activities were happening. When those people looked at one another, it was a connection. It was a breathtaking Sunday morning, just out of bed, sniffling and whatever. And still, you're the most gorgeous person I've ever imagined I could ever share my life experience with. Huh. That's what I help people get to, and that's what I was hoping for. And when I found it, I was surprised, because it wasn't really in the person that I thought I would be with.
Okay.
Professionally, we'll do a little sidestep here. Professionally, I studied business and international economics in 2 different countries. And when I started my career, I was like, I'm just not going to stop my education. And what I'd like to learn about is finance. So I went to work in the stock market, and I soon went with a money management company and raised the ranks. So you were talking about professional successes. I was in the marketing department, and the partners, they were like, we're the big game hunters. And they would go out and they'd make these huge sales with these, I mean, tremendous, like, oh my God, these guys they were the big guns. And I'm like, right, but I made your presentation. I wrote the script.
Mm.
I talked to the little brokers all day long. Can I be a small game hunter? And they were like, you can't do that. And I'm like, sure, I can. Can I just, would you be willing to invest 40 minutes in the conference room and allow me to show you what I can do? So I did. And their jaws dropped. And they were like, yeah, go ahead, be a small game hunter. So all the little brokers that I would talk to from the marketing perspective who wanted to participate in this portfolio were thrilled that they could then participate even though they weren't the big game. And I brought in, I think over $1 billion in assets under management. So naturally I was promoted to portfolio manager amongst my peers, who then were like, wait, how come you now have a corner office and one of us is your assistant? So that concept is touched upon in this book. I did live it.
Yeah.
And so from that, I realized that I wanted to continue my education. I was working with all the old money and I'm like, whoo, I can never stop. I can't sleep. I can't this. And it became a little much for me because it was such a big responsibility and my integrity is so high that I could not sleep until everything was done, which, as you can imagine, I got no sleep. So I realized I needed to shift my life somewhat. So I went into medical publishing is actually what caught my attention. And I stayed with that company for a dozen years. I was offered the management of a customer service department. And these people were really smart, and nobody in the organization realized how brilliant they were.
Right.
And I'm like, do you realize the treasure you have here? And I could bring anyone who could type and talk and was willing to, I could teach them how to do this job because it was an entry-level position. And as I made friends throughout the organization, I was like, you all in the different departments don't know how this business is interconnected. And I would talk to product development team and they'd be like, oh, it's really hard to get new ideas for the next product that's coming out. And I'm like, because the market research was hard to access. And I'm like, what do you want to know? Give me 3 questions and 45 minutes. And they're like, what? I said, I'm talking to the client all day long in my department. And so Shazam, suddenly the product development department realized the gold mine that I had. And that is sales, the same thing. So it became an interconnected organization, and the entire company became more successful because I started to tie the departments together with this new respect.
Mm.
In addition, my team was so excited that suddenly they were being appreciated in a whole new way that they wanted to take on more and do more. And so from that moment on, I would say to my senior management team, what goals would you like to set for me? And then I'd say, okay, I can do that. And they're looking at each other, she can. And I'd come to my team and I'd say, we're going to exceed this by $1 million. And I did that year over year, every single year I worked there. So, and they kept trying to up the game. And I'm like, I'm going to be creative and find another way. So the hardest thing, to answer one of your questions, I considered the hardest thing, probably in my opinion, the biggest professional success I've ever accomplished, was when they transitioned that entire business from one coast to another. So from California to Pennsylvania. I had to let go of all of my amazing employees and keep them on long enough to train the new people I was hiring across the country. They did not believe me. So this is change management extraordinaire. Yep. And I had experience with change management. This was a biggie. So I did keep them on. They were thrilled to stay because I offered to help career track them into their next role. So I helped them grow while I recruited, hired, and trained my East Coast team, and said things like, with my body of knowledge and yours, you're going to be better, stronger, and smarter than me. And so that is how it worked, because my West Coast team trained the East Coast team with me. And the success, as I know it, is the senior manager, or I'm sorry, the CEO of the organization. Behind closed doors, I did not hear this from his mouth directly initially. He said, Michelle transitioned this entire business with zero disruption in service to customers. Just because she made it look easy doesn't mean it was. That's one of my biggest accolades.
Very nice. Very nice. Sorry, please go on.
I'm telling a whole story. Here's my life, dear mom. So with that, I stayed with that organization. I met my husband, who was everything I needed, even though originally it wasn't who I thought he, in my mind, what he would look like, or his job, that sort of thing. But we knew. And people ask me, do you believe in love at first sight? And my answer to that is yes. Yes, I do. It's easier to find what you're looking for when you have an idea of what you're looking for. So if you're looking for a needle in a haystack, it's easier to know what a needle looks like if you're looking for it and clear away the hay. Together, we built a home, we built a family, we built a life together, and it was perfect until he died. And that left me head of household, sole parent, and you guessed it, single. So I had to go back to, in my opinion, negative on the number line, even though not just the drawing board, but I had to rebuild my life and figure out what my future was going to look like and how I wanted to live the rest of my precious life. I did the same thing for my kids. And then a friend of mine went out for a run, who I used to go running with, and he had a heart attack and died. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And of course, based on the story I just shared with you, I do know what to do. So I went to his widow and I said, this is never going to be okay. I'm going to hold your hand and walk this journey with you. Let's project manage this thing. And so I have become an expert at helping people rebuild life after loss, to rebuild life after divorce, to rebuild life and love after heartbreak. And that's so in between that time, I missed one. I was a social scientist at Stanford University in the Department of Medicine. But fast forward, that's how I became an author, because I needed to write the guide I did not have.
Mm.
So that's the Life Worth Living book that I wrote, of how do you rebuild life and become relationship ready, knowing that you are worthy and ready to be in a relationship, and you can identify other people who are relationship ready to invite into your life. So that's how I became an author. That book became an international bestseller. People were reaching out to me from all over the world to help them through it. And I was, accustomed to doing business consulting. This wasn't, I was like, this is easy. What?
Yeah.
So sure, I'll help you. And that's how that first book got started. And then New Management Blueprint really was a love letter to all of the people who had come back to me and said, congratulations on the success of that book. When are you going to write the book we've been begging you to write? So New Management Blueprint is a love letter to them.
Fantastic. You've answered many of my questions, which is excellent. One that I've been, first of all, condolences. Sorry about your husband and your loss, and never, I can imagine, never easy. And as you said, you never get fully over that type of thing.
I do help people through grief in that way. Yes.
Well, one question that just sort of bounced off the page to me was, where does your knowledge come from? How do you know what you know? Like, is it somehow innate? Is it a trait born with it? Or is it something experiential and learned? Like, where did you get this from?
That's a great question. I think it's nature and nurture. It's gotta be to some degree. If this is where I spent my time, actually, I have an interesting example to give you. My boyfriend and I took the kids to the zoo.
Hmm.
And, I would assume that everyone looks at things the way that I do, but they don't. So that's why I was saying, oh, this is easy for me, but it doesn't mean it's easy for everyone.
Yep.
When we go to the zoo, the children and I look at the animals in the zoo. I know, outlandish, right? And we're looking at the interactions that they have with each other or with us, or we're making observations. And that's I don't know that that's innate, but that's how I perceive the world. I see relationships between things, people, the
Okay.
relationship with your inner thoughts, the relationship with your body, the relationship with food, your relationship with where you live, your relationship with your family, your children, parent-child relationship where you're the child, parent-child relationship where you're the parent,
Hmm.
your relationship with your academics, your career path, the organization and the role you're in, your clients, your customers, your colleagues, all of it.
Right.
So I see the world through relationships. Now, here we are at the zoo, and my brilliant boyfriend, he sees the animals, but he's looking at the enclosures, and he's looking at the generators that support the environment for the animals. And he's looking at the structures that are put in place for them. And I'm like, wow, that's a really different way to see the world. So
You just described me, by the way. That's exactly what I do. So thank you. Yeah, very good.
so I think that's probably the most concise answer, because when someone presents a relationship challenge to me, and then we talk about, well, what is the relationship dream come true? My brain is like, all right, how do we bridge that gap? And I will literally take that information in my head and go, here's all the different outcomes and the consequences to those outcomes. So anything that comes my way, That's how I approach any challenge or any relationship interaction, so that I can help people transform from relationship challenge to relationship dream come true. But yeah, the zoo.
Very nice. We need to jump onto the book, otherwise we're going to have another session. So, because we'll run out of time. But let's jump into the new management blueprint. I had the pleasure to read it, so I have 1,000,001 questions. My biggest challenge now is going to be to find the right ones to ask within the time that remains. Just before we hit record, I asked if you would mind reading the last paragraph on the last page of your book, which happens to be a quote from none other than Emerson. But I think it sets up the book so beautifully, and it sets up a lot of the way that you write and you talk. So I wonder if you would do the honors and mind reading that last paragraph for our listeners.
I would be delighted to read it, particularly because this is a reminder. Emerson reminds us to live life fully. This is your one precious life, and it is limited. I have not yet met anyone who admitted to not being mortal. So really cherish every experience that you can in life, even the challenges and obstacles, as well as the celebrations and the mundane that is the chain that connects all of it between. So I'd be delighted to read it for you. I start by asking and inviting, dare I play with Ralph Waldo Emerson? To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the loyalty and respect of your employees, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and customers, and to endure the obstacles and pitfalls of challenges in changing environments, to appreciate beauty, to find the spark in others, to leave the world just a bit better, whether by a winning team, an accomplished project well completed, an acknowledgement for a job well done, to know even one life has breathed a little easier and been promoted to create their dreams and meet their goals. This is to have succeeded in managing well. And then I ask my reader, how may I help you succeed? As an invitation to connect with me.
Very nice. And we're going to ask that question at the end as well, see whether people would like to connect. But beautifully read, and I'm so pleased that I didn't try and do it. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
But
Thank
I
you
can
for
also see why your team, the people that you used to have working with you, were so encouraged and enthusiastic about the idea of you writing a book. I think they obviously got to share throughout their career, with the short time they had with you, the knowledge and the wisdom that you were willing to part with. There's so much in this book, and we're just going to scrape the surface. So please, if anyone is interested, we're going to put the link in the show notes. But where to start? I mean, to start with the accolades that you receive at the very beginning, the people that read the book and are full of praise for you as a person, you as a leader, you as a writer. Incredible. I would fill the rest of the time just by reading that. You talk about virtues, you talk about Aristotle's 12 virtues, and then you go into expanding on values. And one of the things that I was wondering was, in the book, you list your top 5 or your 5 core values. They, at that time of writing, it was communication, integrity, responsibility / accountability, teamwork, and leadership. And I'm wondering, you mentioned that they shift with time and circumstance, and I also believe that. I'm wondering, are they still your top 5?
Your core values can adjust based on where you're at in the developmental
Mm,
stages of your life. I call it the lifeline of your relationship arc. Mine have remained the same. And as you mentioned, communication, integrity, accountability, responsibility, teamwork, I've included inspiration and love because primarily the people who are coming to me now are people who need some sort of support. They've got blind spots. They're really smart of what is missing in their life. What is it that they didn't figure out? And to have someone support them in that way to actually help them figure out what are the blind spots so that you can stretch your strengths and strengthen your weaknesses for proper balance in your life and achieve your professional and personal goals. So I invite those other additional core values in for myself
mhm,
because I'm now not always in a professional setting. We'll be dealing with personal things as well,
right.
so that we can invite new love in or invite the right relationship in on a personal level as well as a
Yes.
professional level. You bring them up. I'll tell you, there has not been one business consulting experience or professional experience where I was team building. And actually, one of my clients has me coming in soon to her organization. I mean, I have worked with the largest organizations in the world doing this because they can't figure out what's wrong with their training and culture,
Mm,
that people aren't achieving the goals or they're out of professional alignment in some way. So I've come in, and one of the things that I really love to do is to remind people that they bring their value system into work with them. You
mhm,
can't just leave it at the door because then you're going to be out of alignment as you make decisions and live in your life. I
yeah.
mean, how can you work for an organization that's outside of your value system? You're not being true to who you are, and therefore you won't represent them well anyway. So, walking into any scenario, and each day that you walk into your professional and personal life, but we're talking about professional at the moment, you bring your value system in with you. And all of the decisions that you make that are in line with your value system and your top values will actually line up and help you achieve your goals. It's totally fine to go outside your value system occasionally and follow some sparkly object, but realize that's what you're doing
Mm,
and go have fun with that. And then come back and go ahead and pursue the goals that you really want for yourself in your life. So what I would do when I had a new team in particular is I would invite them to figure out their top 5 core values and then put them all on a board. And it very quickly, what would rise up in a healthcare organization, for example,
mm,
there are a lot of values that emulate care, love, health, um, those kinds of uh, servant leadership, those kinds
mm,
of value systems will show up in an organization like that because people are naturally attracted to the industry that aligns with them. Then we line those up with the goals that we have been set for as a team. And that way, everything you do is going to help your personal success and the team's success, which, of course, ha ha ha, what a wonderful management technique, are
mhm,
lined up with the success of the organization. So when you do what's right for you, it's also going to roll up and be right for those who are supporting you and you are supporting on your team and with the organization that you're working with and for. So that's why the subtitle of New Management Blueprint is literally Spark Talent to Ignite Winning Teams, Creating Valuable Results. Because when you're in alignment, everything else is easy and fun.
yep.
It's great.
What do you do if the alignment doesn't exist? Like, have you had any experience like that?
Well, it's funny because there's a natural there will be people that the general alignment almost always exists.
Yes.
If there's something outside of that, I would go through a line of questions. Like I can think of a small handful of examples of people who are making decisions for reasons that would, praise their own ego,
Mhm.
but it was putting down the customer. And the organization brought me in to adjust that. So if they are right and the customer is always wrong, the customer doesn't enjoy doing business there. And the organization was losing business because of this attitude. And so I asked, what do you really want to achieve here? What's your goal? And when we really fine-tuned it, what happened was their goal, they were out of alignment with themselves. So I would ask, what's in your best interest? What's the meaning behind the message? What's the meaning behind this choice of behavior?
Mm.
And where can you really get that satisfied in a meaningful way that's not belittling others, but then will actually support you, because that's what they were looking for. They were just looking for, they were doing the wrong thing wrong instead of the right thing right.
Right.
You can do the wrong thing right, you can do the right thing wrong, but they were double negativing it. So if what they need is ego substantiated based on the contribution, the recognition, and that sort of thing, all we needed to do was one click pivot. I wasn't asking them to change 180 degrees. One click pivot, so they would naturally and organically be recognized for their successes and intelligence and contributions. And boy, did they love that, because that was authentic. So I pulled them back in alignment in a way that they could understand. I say, meet them where they're at. And, what I say is, a cat is a cat, meet them where they're at. Don't expect them to be something other than that. So it's a little Dr. Seussian, but when you can understand why someone's behaving the way they're behaving, and it really doesn't take much then to adjust that. But as you kindly pointed out, I evidently can see things in a way that not everyone can see.
Very true. You have a lot of great sayings. You just demonstrated the Dr. Poem there, but you have a expression you mentioned earlier: stretch your strengths and strengthen your weaknesses for proper balance. Now, there's an age-old debate. Should we focus on strengths? Should we focus on our weaknesses? I love this statement because it's a balance between the two. Stretch your strengths, strengthen your weaknesses. It's so practical. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you the source of that. I became an aerobics instructor. I was a fitness instructor and a medical exercise specialist as a hobby to stress relief while I was in the financial industry. I know, overachiever. And that's where I learned that, because if your structure is out of balance, if you have a weakness, if there's a weak link in the chain, the whole thing's going to crumble.
Mm.
Where I transferred this knowledge is, I think, a little bit more, even more profound. And that is what I saw businesses doing successfully, is when they didn't know how to do something. So there was a weakness in their business strategy, in their body of knowledge, in their experience. They hired or invited and created a board of directors who have that experience.
Right.
And that knowledge and that wisdom. So they then could access their board of directors, who could say, well, here's what you'll run into if you do this. So that, the learning curve is shortened and they don't have to run into the same pitfalls and losses. So I'm like, why can't we as individuals have a board of directors? So I started to work with people to help them build what I call an inspirational advisory board. Therefore, what we do is we figure out what do you have a bounty of? What are your strengths? And where do you have the support that you need on your advisory board? And where do you have a gap that might be missing?
Mm,
Who and how do we invite the right people in closer in your life? Again, relationships.
yeah,
Um, so that you do have the right people on your advisory board, whether it's emotional support people on your advisory board, subject matter experts, if they are people who are accountability partners for you, or
mm,
if they're people who will leverage their success for your success. Those
right.
are some of the categories on that advisory board. And you can say, oh yeah, I have my people. I go to I know who to go to for what. But when you actually do the exercise and itemize it down, that's when you start to see, oh, I've got a gap. And I really need somebody who I can talk with who will just, I ask, would you like me to listen, guide, or help? Sometimes people just need someone to listen
Mm,
and not try to fix it. Just allow a safe space to slow your brilliant brain down a little bit, slow down your thoughts, talk it out so that you can then feel the vibration and hear your own words and have them out in front of you. And sometimes that's all you need to go, I can now see the through line to get to where I want to go. Thank you.
mm,
But you need a safe space with someone who will create that emotional safety for you to be able to do that
yeah.
successfully. Did
Gosh,
I answer?
there is so much here. I I am struggling, but I want to jump now across to the employee and thinking of the employee as a customer. You mentioned in
Mhm.
the book, and
Yeah.
it's kind of tied to the customer journey maps
Yep.
and identifying touch points and finding gaps, if you like. But applying that same logic to your employees and looking at
Mhm.
them as customers and thinking about the interactions for your employees. I love that. I think that's a brilliant idea and a brilliant approach to look at things from a different perspective through a different lens. Where did that come from? And you like, did it?
Well, I had what I call a eucalyptus manager once. A eucalyptus tree, as you may know, drops an oil beneath it so nothing grows underneath it. And so I had a eucalyptus manager, is what I
Got it.
called this. And I'm like, never again. And I didn't want to be a eucalyptus manager either.
Mm,
So as a manager, as a director, as a senior level person in an organization, I wanted to recruit, hire, and train employees that were going to be promoted within the organization or to whatever their dream was going to be. That was a personal choice. And as a result of that choice, my turnover, I'm not counting promotions within the organization, but the turnover in any department that I led was less than 1%. Because my employees were so happy and they were so busy and so successful. Not too long ago, someone was telling me, oh, yeah, we used to come in early and then go out after work on Fridays so that we could talk about our successes, what we did well, what could we do better. I'm like, you guys never stopped. Because they were so excited about the success that they had individually and as a team.
mm,
So when I was looking at, customer mapping and the customer journey and the moments of truth, the impact where we can make a positive experience so that loyalty was built or just lose the customer entirely and our brand and reputation. Ugh. I was walking through that, teaching that to my team. And I'm like, actually, I feel this way about each and every one of you because I want you to come to this organization and be proud of the work that you're doing and be proud of the organization that you represent and that you make a difference here. And when you're not here, we miss you.
mm,
We do. So show up was my number one rule.
Right.
Show up emotionally, physically, intellectually. Give us your best game when you can.
Mm.
And so I created a customer centric department basically in and our customer centric organization, because I want the experience interdepartmentally and for the career experience to be a good one for the people who come and work in my purview. That way they'll feel good about it. People, what do they say? People don't leave companies, they leave managers.
Mm.
Um, and that wasn't going to be the reason for leaving in my case. Absolutely not. So I built a professional relationship with each and every person. I I brought intention to the relationship, to, employee to employer or direct report or whatever it was, so that their journey had impact as well. There was a time early on in one of the departments where an employee said, I went to elementary school and every year I progressed. And then I went to junior high and high school. And I even went to college. And every year I got promoted. But now I've got this job and I'm no longer getting promoted every year. I'm just going to come in and do the same thing every year, every day for the rest of my life.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, there's no sense of progress in that, is there? She was like, please help me. And I'm like, absolutely, yes. So we put in benchmarks and goals and achievements, these moments of truth where you could get a sense of acknowledgement and recognition that we were trained to achieve throughout our young life, our academic life. So here's a way that, you could come in even as an entry level role and go from, junior to senior to next level up, depending on what their skill set was. And that's very customized. Some people would come to me and say, what I really want is to work in accounting, but I have no accounting background. Well, I can help you with that, because every time there's an accounting opportunity, I'm going to make that connection with you. If someone said, I want to be a leader, I'd say, but they're in an entry level role. So I'm going for the extremes just so you have an example. All right. And then whenever there was an opportunity for them to be a team lead, a project lead, anything, they were an obvious choice for that, because that's their prize. So we would give them that. And then with that would help them get a sense of accomplishment. I tell you, I get more positive feedback on my employee reviews. People would look forward to the employee review all year long. I'm like, really? And they would say, you were really paying attention.
Mm.
Yes, I am. This is my responsibility. This is my success. Your success is mine. How can I help you succeed? So they were like, you pay more attention than my mom ever paid to me. Like, oh my God. Well, let me work with your mom. Just kidding. And there's always going to be room for improvement. And typically your brain, your amygdala is designed to look for danger. And so your amygdala is going to be all lit up when there's areas for improvement. And then you're going to forget all the other wonderful things that I shared with you. But I'm going to write them in a way to say, this is an opportunity for growth, not that it's a problem.
Yeah.
And so those moments of truth, knowing that I had their back, knowing that if they ran into an obstacle, they would never hide it from me and go, oh, we just need to figure this out. We're gonna get in trouble. I had just the opposite. I would have an employee, it was fine with me if they were dealing with a very difficult topic and a difficult client for whatever reason, and they'd say, you know what, this sounds really like serious. This is really important. Would you like me to skip my team lead? Would you like me to skip my manager? Do you want me to go up to the director or senior level on this? Well, the client, of course, is going to be like, well, yeah. And they'd come into me and be like, ha, 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 I got a tough one for you. And they'd be like, can I sit in the office with you while you figure this out? Yeah, sure. Come on in. And just as you had asked me before, I'm figuring out, how do I meet with equal force to whatever is happening here, not over or under. I'm not going to let someone take advantage of us in any way, especially not my employees. I'm going to protect them.
Mm.
And I don't need to overwhelm somebody, but to meet with an equal purview to say what's really going on here and what's the best outcome we can achieve. And I call this the 3 easy steps, basically. High level, what are the 3 easy steps, you're asking? What's the ultimate goal you'd like to achieve? To set up the environment that's a safe environment to allow that to happen. And then have the engagement, knowing that step 3 is going to be achieving the outcome that you would like in step 1. So I would work with clients or whatever the challenge was, and I would invite my team to watch how I did it so they could learn how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And fewer, as people trust me, they would bring that up to me, but they'd also learn how to navigate that so it didn't escalate as often. It was great. It was great because I empowered my team.
Fantastic. Unfortunately, Michelle, we're out of time, and I'm just scrolling through my mind thinking we have so many questions we haven't touched on. There was one really big topic, and unfortunately I don't have the time, but I think we may have to schedule another session on interview skills and questions in interviews. And in the book,
Yeah, there's some good ones. I was famous for those.
Yeah. Look, I'm sure there's 1,000 things we haven't touched on. Is there any one thing that you'd like to share before we wrap up for the session?
Living your life in alignment with who you would like to be makes for a different life experience. Inviting the people in who you feel safe with, who you get a sense of calm with, who you can just throw your head back and laugh unabashedly. Those are the types of people you want to invite closer into your life. And it is okay to recalibrate relationships and not seek approval from people outside your core value system. And it's really, really hard sometimes to see that and to know how to do that gracefully. So if you're feeling out of alignment in any relationship in your life, let that be a clear signal that it's time to reach out to somebody like me at The Art of Relationshiping. It's TheArtofRelationShipping. So it's relationshiping, The Art of Relationshiping. And you're welcome. Your listeners are welcome to put some time on my calendar. And I'd be happy to listen, guide, or help you realign the relationships in your life, both personally and professionally.
Fantastic conversation, Michelle, and so sorry we haven't covered maybe just even the top portions. Like the iceberg is still exposed and we haven't even started to address it. But look, Michelle Hoffmann, thank you for being on the ET Project. Great conversation, great listening to the insights, the wisdom that you have around not only being a fantastic leader, but also how to do that within a relationship. And look forward to the opportunity to connect again. We're going to do it. We have to do it because there's so much. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight because it's in my head now. I've got to. So I'll leave it at that. But look, thanks for being on the show. It's been fantastic.
I'm delighted. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I look forward to sharing more time with you.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.